Alrighty, welcome to Squatter's ramblings of the games that he plays that nobody pays attention to. But hey, I guess you could say I'm one of them incognito YouTubers. Alright, let's get right into it. Okay, the game that I played was Cosmic Fantasy 2. It's a game that I've played before, but I decided to play it again because I'm like that, I guess. Uh, I gotta tell you, I've played a lot of these games before through to their end, and they're they seem to be different every time. This is a game that I've only played through once before, right? And it was several years ago, so maybe I forgot a bunch of things, but I remember a lot of the characters and everything, but just how the story plays out and everything it always seems to be new to me, right? Which is why I play through these older games, right? Um, Early on in my, well, not so early on. Again, maybe this will be 2010, 2011, 2012. I decided to play through a whole bunch of TurboGrafx 16 CD games. Pretty much just to see what they were like, honestly. Uh, I've always been enamored with the system, honestly. It's probably my favorite system of all time, honestly. And not simply because it has the best games, mind you, but simply because of the style of games. I mean, I really, really like them, honestly. I like the animation, I like the way they're made and everything. I like how a lot of the time it was very groundbreaking in terms of CD audio, CD cutscenes, and everything like that. And as simplistic as they are, I would say that you know what, looking at um, just anime in general, it's only a few frames short of your live of your actual cartoon anime, right? And again, it's got high color animation. The graphics are pretty good, cutscene at least. But on the other side of things, I would certainly say that this game and its ilk are at the, shall I say, bare end of what I would consider an enjoyable game for me. Now, a lot of people they could get enjoyment, and so do I, honestly, sometimes, right? They could get enjoyment out of an Atari 2600 game or a Magnavox Odyssey game or something from the Atari ST or Commodore 64 and everything, right? And a lot of the times they do reviews and playthroughs of those and everything. And to me, honestly, uh, you know what? It's just not for me. I need to have, you know, a lot of the times I attack my friends because they're more modern day gamers and everything, whether it's console or PC, and they say, "Oh, how can you like like games from like, the 64-bit era, the 32-bit era, the fourth and fifth generation and everything?" And I say, I don't know, man. They jive with me, I like the style of them, I like the originality of them, and despite their flaws, which I'll get to, so. But at the same time, I would say that I have limits to what I would consider to be an enjoyably playable game. And to me, it does not go any further back than at very least with the TurboGrafx 16, the hybrid 8-bit to 16-bit generation. And the reason why I say that is because the TurboGrafx 16 released in, I think, October 1988 and then maybe August 1989, uh, Japan and North America respectively. Um, the thing is that the games, and I'm sure I've said this in other reviews, honestly, but the games are just far, far too simplistic, honestly. They're just a bunch of blocky pixels. They're not very nice to look at. I get sick and tired of the bland colors and everything. Every environment is the same. Enemies are just palette swaps, which again, this game has, to be honest. But again, like, for me to like an older game such as this, and I mean, this game is pretty much it. It's almost as old as I am, honestly, but it has aspects to it that make it enjoyable to a modern audience and to myself, honestly. Uh, as I said, I like the cutscenes and everything. I like the CD quality music and everything. If the system that the game is running on that I'm playing is just too old and just too simplistic and everything, I just can't get into the game, honestly. I cannot suspend my disbelief. I cannot use my imagination and everything. I need to have some kind of better, more intricate visual representation of the characters that I'm playing as. And through the cutscenes, and I guess for the most part through the somewhat simplistic graphics, given the time and the console and its capabilities, um, this game provides it for me. So, again, it's Cosmic Fantasy 2. It's the only game of the series out of 5 that were released that was released in North America. It's got Cosmic Fantasy 1, 2, 3, and then there were 2 versions of 4, and then there was Cosmic Fantasy Stories on the Sega CD, again only released in Japan. Though I think that was only a compilation, so that probably fits into a Gaiden of sorts. But so again, I'd have to say that this game, should I start with the good or the bad first? I'll start with the good, honestly. It's very colorful compared to a lot of games that I've played, uh, especially compared to Cobra, the Space Adventure. Again, as I said, I like role-playing games such as this one. Uh, I like exploring worlds and but again, to be honest, oh, okay, that's me getting into the bad again. I'll stick with the good. Okay, I like exploring worlds. I like getting my characters stronger and everything. But again, a lot of the times you'll watch my videos, these non-existent viewers, and they say, well, you normally cheat at your games, right? So. And I say, yeah, I do. Honestly, this is this YouTube channel I generally don't take very seriously. Again, with YouTube's copyright policy and the adpocalypse and things that aren't suitable for this and that audience and everything. It's, to me, from a person who's sitting on the bare brinks of just looking into what's going on with YouTube right now, it's just not worth trying to get into, honestly. I have a daytime job and everything, right? So I'm doing fine. I've got no problems, right? And I'm always going to look for a daytime job should anything ever happen to it, right? You never put all your eggs in one basket, is what I'm saying. But, again, while I do say I like strengthening my characters over time, because in my opinion, I know I've said this before, that's the one way that you know you can actually beat a game. You know you can actually beat a game regardless of your skill level, because you can make your characters stronger, and what were at one point impossible battles now become very easy for you, right? So if you have the time and effort on your hands, you can make any game beatable. It's not like a side-scrolling platformer where every single jump or movement is a pitfall, right? In this level, you may die from being hit by an enemy, or you may overshoot a jump, or you may undershoot a jump, or you may run out of time, this, that, or the other thing. You won't have enough power-ups. So, again, I tire with games like that very, very quickly. So, I tend to stick to not necessarily simpler games, but in terms of control scheme, simpler, right? So, there aren't a whole bunch of different action buttons that need incredible hand-eye coordination, sorry, to get the job done and everything. I mean, I want the story to play out before me. As I said, I'm sure before in so many other ramblings of this sort, I love cinematic quality games, which is why I played this game again. It's a simple game and it doesn't have a whole lot of cutscenes, but it has a good deal of them for the time. Over 20 of them, so says the box art, and you're seeing some of them in the video feed that's going on during this ramble. And again, I want to see the story play out before me. I want to be an active participant, but I want that to have a sort of limit, right? So that's why I go for console style RPGs, right? I know that there are strategy RPGs and everything and that sort of thing, like Dragon Force or Shining Force, sorts of games like that, honestly. But I tend to stray away from those games because, again, there's just not a whole lot to do with them. I mean, there are a bunch of cutscenes and everything, but again, all the gameplay portions are just dragging a cursor around the screen and moving your characters around on a grid, and then a little combat scene plays out before you, and whether you win or not, it seems to be up to the to the computer itself. But so no, that's why I go for games like this, honestly. And so I guess for the characters, they're relatable, definitely. Van is the characteristic good guy. He is fully good, I would say. Like, is he? Would I call him chaotic good? I'm not sure. Lawful good. Maybe I would call him neutral good because he threatens to kill people a lot, and I don't think that chaotic or lawful good people would do that. That's of course crossing two different genres, right? But and Van again, he's a cool guy, massive mop of brown hair that he has, and uh, but what I would say is his love interest Laura, and basically the character that this entire game sort of pivots on. Uh, she is not active enough in the story, and I said this. Who did I say this about? Oh, it was on Ys 4, Dawn of Ys, the main adversary in that game. It's the same sort of thing with him, honestly. It She was not active enough in the story to play any major role, if you ask me. And to me, that was really disappointing. Again, it's an old game. It's in the raw form that it is. It was translated and localized by Working Designs. And again, right now, what you're seeing through the cutscene is, pretty much the last time she's ever mentioned. Even though there's another cutscene in which they say, "Oh, she died a week ago," and I'll get to that. And I was really confused about that. But she doesn't have a whole lot to say in this cutscene, and I thought, like, is there something wrong with my emulator or something? Like, are there dropped dialogue lines or something? Because she just kind of goofily looks at him with a blank smile on her face. And I'm thinking, like, I mean, you're the equivalent of Luna from Lunar series, right? And I think it's like you have nothing else to say, really? Honestly, I don't know. And the thing is, with Gallum or Galum or whatever, I mean that's kind of weird. I mean, there's a lot of weird things with this game. Again, I guess Working Designs was trying to find their groove with this game. Again, they started off on the TurboGrafx CD or the TurboGrafx 16. Of course, they made a few business programs before back in the 80s, but uh, for video games, of course, they started out on the TurboGrafx 16, and they made a couple cartridge games, those being Kadash and Parasol Stars. I find that funny because the head honcho over there, Victor Ireland, is so staunchly opposed to cartridge games that he refused to do Lunar Legends for the Game Boy Advance, which I gotta tell you, is like it was pretty much in the bag for him. He had the right of first refusal on it for him, and he says, "Oh, I don't like the expense of producing cartridges." I think, the Game Boy Advance, the Nintendo 64, while in the Nintendo 64's regard, it wasn't the most successful Nintendo system. I mean, people certainly bought it, right? I mean, it's like people certainly were more than willing to pay an extra $10 or $20, or sometimes twice as much comparison to a PlayStation game for an N64 game. You know, so I mean, that was a big ball drop on his part, right? But so again, it's just kind of funny to realize that the guy who says I hate cartridges, even though they're what gave my business the platform that we started on. So again, as I was saying, yeah, this is pretty much one of Working Design's first CD-ROM games. Honestly, they might have been working on maybe Exile at this point, maybe Vasteel, but those are two different kinds of games, honestly. And I gotta say, Vasteel, yeah, its production values are not good. I would not say that it's a Working Designs quality game. But this game, I would say, I would find the voice acting to be done pretty well. Honestly, the voices seem to match the characters. They have good personality and everything. Um, Pico's voice is kind of annoying. I like how the Pico's father has a kind of Sylvester the Cat style voice. I thought that was pretty funny. But yeah, no, and I was actually pretty surprised because the thing with working designs games is they usually have a core group of voice actors, and to me, like just offhand, really, I'm not really looking this stuff up or anything, so I could be wrong. I just don't see any familiar voices like Jennifer Stigel or whatever her name is, or the guy who did the voice for Galleon. Uh, again, it's like they could have come on later and everything, so I'm not necessarily attacking them for this point, but it just seems to be a whole bunch of unknowns, and I'm just kind of sort of surprised they didn't come back for any subsequent working designs releases. So, given that information, I would have to say that this is probably one of their earliest games. Because again, it is a very, very simple game. And one thing I would have to say about some of the negative stuff that we're getting into is some of the songs that are in this, well, songs like the soundtrack, I should say, uh, it's okay, honestly. I mean, it gets you through the game, but there are not a whole lot of different tracks, honestly. There are very few tracks in this game. I think there's, to be honest, my God, like maybe just a little more than half a dozen, like 6, 7, 8 tracks maybe, while your average game would maybe have like 20, 25, maybe even 30 tracks, honestly. So yeah, I mean, it was pretty much two different soundtracks for the villages. The overworld always had a single soundtrack. The dungeons always had a single soundtrack. One single soundtrack for random encounters, and one single soundtrack for boss encounters. Right. So that was something that to me did not lend a whole lot of variation to the game. So that was certainly not a very enjoyable aspect of the game. And the Galem guy, as I said, he's not active enough in the plot, honestly. And this Wizda character, like, who is this? Like, I mean, a lot of the times, working design seems to adhere closely to the original Japanese language and aspects of the game. And I gotta tell you, from the cover art of the North American version, you really dropped the ball on that one. Like, it looks worse than the Mega Man 1 cover artwork for the original NES. I mean, like, oh god, it makes Pico look like some kind of bastardized inbred blue Bill the Cat from Bloom County. It looks absolutely terrible, honestly. And while they do have certain screenshots of it, like the back of the CD, I think has the original Japanese artwork. I think it's like, my god, it's like, did that not cost you more to pay a North American artist to draw that shit for you, right? And to be honest, it did not make the game more appealing. So I think I'm running out of time here, but so I would say the game, to me, it was enjoyable. I'm glad I played it. It's pretty much maybe a 65 out of 100, so that's pretty much all I have to say about the game. Well, thank you very much to who chooses to watch this, my non-existent viewers. In my mind, I'll see you next time. Skwatter out.